It was Coventry, England, 1972. The streets were quiet that summer, the kind of quiet that settles in just before something goes terribly wrong. 16-year-old Sheila Fox was an ordinary girl by all appearances. She lived with her parents in a modest home and was known to be quiet, a little private, and prone to wandering off on her own, but she always came back, until she didn't. On a cool July morning, Sheila left her home dressed in a light blouse and skirt. She told her parents she was going into town, just like she had many times before. But that evening, when dinner was served, there was no sign of Sheila. Hours passed, then days, then years. No note, no witnesses, no body. Her family was devastated. Posters were printed, phone calls made. The case made the rounds in local papers for a few weeks before quietly falling off the public's radar. Police had no leads, only a blurry photo of Sheila taken by a school photographer just weeks before she vanished. Her family held on to that photo like it was her last fingerprint on this world. Then came the rumors. Locals whispered that Sheila had been secretly involved with an older man, a man well into his 30s. Some claimed they saw her in a car with someone days before her disappearance. Others thought she'd run off willingly. A few more cynical townsfolk believed something darker had happened, that the man wasn't a lover, but a predator. Despite it all, no one could prove anything. Years turned into decades. Her parents, heartbroken, eventually emigrated to Canada in 1976. And the case, like so many cold cases, slipped quietly into silence. But then, 52 years later, in late December 2024, the West Midlands Police Cold Case Unit decided to try something new. They uploaded Sheila's faded photograph to their online archives and issued a renewed appeal on social media. It was a long shot, a desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, someone out there remembered something. Within hours, tips came flooding in. One message stood out. A woman, now in her 60s, claimed to recognize the girl in the photo. She said she knew her, not from the past, but from now. This woman insisted Sheila wasn't dead. In fact, she was alive, living under a different name, in a different town, with a different life. The investigators followed the lead, and what they found shocked even the most seasoned detectives. Sheila Fox was alive, now 68 years old, and living under an assumed name just a few hours from where she disappeared. She had reinvented herself entirely. New name, new records, even a new date of birth. When questioned, Sheila confirmed what investigators had suspected for decades. She had run away. But the reasons were never made fully public. She hinted at being in a situation she needed to escape. Not just her family, but something unspoken. Something she wasn't ready to reveal. She had tried to contact her family once in the 1980s, but by then they had left the UK. Her letter never reached them, and so she stayed hidden, believing they had forgotten her, or perhaps preferred it that way. The family was informed of her survival in early 2025. They expressed both shock and relief, and a strange sense of sadness. Her parents had died believing she was gone forever. The grief had aged them faster. They never saw her again. As for Sheila, she remains largely out of the public eye. She has asked for privacy. But her story is now one of the most astonishing cold case resolutions in UK history. Police have publicly acknowledged her case as a reminder that even after half a century, some stories aren't over. They're just unfinished. And that grainy black and white photo, the one posted online in 2024, was the key that unlocked it all. It was the face of a teenager frozen in time, a girl who stepped out of one life, into the void, and emerged decades later as someone else entirely. But the real question still lingers. What was she running from, and did it ever truly let her go? Vallejo, California, March 23rd, 2015. The night was calm, almost unnervingly so. Inside a quiet home near Mare Island, 29-year-old physical therapist Denise Huskins and her boyfriend Aaron Quinn were asleep. It was just before dawn when the nightmare began. A bright light flooded the bedroom. A voice boomed from the darkness. "Wake up, this is a robbery. We're not here to hurt you." They were wrong. The intruder was wearing a wetsuit and ski mask. He moved with military precision. Within seconds, Denise and Aaron were tied up, blindfolded, fitted with noise-canceling headphones playing pre-recorded messages. It wasn't just terrifying. It was methodical, calculated, cold. They were drugged. Cameras were installed to monitor their every move. The man then informed them Denise was coming with him. Aaron was told to wait for further instructions. A ransom would be demanded. Denise was led from the house, shoved into the trunk of a car, and disappeared into the night. When Aaron finally freed himself and called police, the horror truly began. Not because of what happened, but because no one believed him. From the start, the Vallejo Police Department was suspicious. The story sounded too strange, too cinematic. A masked man, a ransom demand of $8,500, an oddly small amount, headphones playing recordings. It all felt fake. They interrogated Aaron for hours, pressured him to confess, accused him of killing Denise, and when 2 days later Denise Huskins was released alive near her family's home in Huntington Beach, police weren't relieved. They were furious. They called the entire thing a hoax, a media stunt, a real-life reenactment of Gone Girl. Even though Denise had clearly been drugged, even though she described her captivity in chilling detail, tied up in a soundproof room, sexually assaulted, monitored constantly, even though her story never changed. She was mocked, dismissed, branded a liar by national news outlets. One police spokesman even told reporters, "If this wasn't a hoax, Miss Huskins has a lot of explaining to do." But behind the scenes, the truth was beginning to unravel. A few weeks later, a bizarre twist. A separate home invasion in Dublin, California. A man tried to break into a home in the middle of the night, but this time, he was caught. His name was Matthew Muller, a Harvard-trained lawyer, a Marine, and now, a kidnapper. Inside Muller's car, police found phones, disguises, stolen laptops, and a stash of evidence from the Huskins case. That wasn't all. They discovered files, audio recordings, even photographs, images of Denise bound in the exact manner she'd described, images of the room she was held in, blueprints of the kidnapping. Emails were then traced, the ones Muller had sent anonymously to media outlets, defending Denise, claiming responsibility. He had tried to clear her name in secret. Suddenly, her story wasn't just believable. It was provable. Police had gotten it all wrong. Denise wasn't a liar. She was a survivor. She had endured a 48-hour nightmare, kidnapped, isolated, only to be humiliated publicly when she returned. Even after Muller's arrest, it took time for the truth to settle. Denise and Aaron sued the city of Vallejo. In 2018, they won a $2.5 million settlement. The city issued a formal apology. But by then, the damage had been done. Years later, their story was finally told, in full, in the 2024 Netflix documentary American Nightmare. The world now knows what really happened behind the headlines. How a brilliant, dangerous man almost got away with it, and how a woman, brutally victimized, was nearly destroyed, not just by her attacker, but by the very people who were supposed to protect her. Denise Huskins disappeared and returned a different person, not because of who she was, but because of what was taken from her. Her voice, her credibility, her truth, and the most chilling part, If it can happen to her, it can happen to anyone. In the early 1990s, Richard Hoagland appeared to lead an enviable life in Indianapolis, Indiana. He was a successful insurance salesman residing in a spacious 5-bedroom home with his wife, Linda Eisler, and their 2 young sons, Matthew and Douglas. The family enjoyed a comfortable lifestyle, complete with a speedboat docked at the nearby Geist Reservoir. However, this facade of domestic bliss shattered on February 10, 1993. That day, Richard called Linda at work, claiming he was unwell and needed to visit the emergency room. Despite her offer to accompany him, he insisted on going alone. Linda's subsequent calls to local hospitals revealed that Richard had never been admitted. He had vanished without a trace, leaving behind his personal belongings, including his toothbrush and winter coat, despite the cold February weather. In the immediate aftermath, authorities discovered Richard's car abandoned at the Indianapolis International Airport. However, there were no records of him boarding any flights, deepening the mystery of his disappearance. That summer, both Matthew and Douglas received birthday cards from their father, each containing $50. Douglas's card read, "Maybe sometime soon we will get to see each other. I bet I won't even know you. It has been so long. Mind your mother. Bye, Dad." These would be the last communications the family received from Richard. The ensuing years were fraught with hardship for Linda and her sons. The family home was foreclosed upon, vehicles were repossessed, and Linda was forced to sell personal belongings to make ends meet. The emotional toll was equally devastating, with Douglas later attributing his struggles with substance abuse to the trauma of his father's abandonment. After a decade of uncertainty, Richard was declared legally dead in 2003, allowing Linda to find some semblance of closure and eventually remarry. However, in July 2016, a startling revelation upended the family's hard-won peace. Detective Anthony Cardillo, from the Pasco County Sheriff's Department in Florida, contacted Linda with astonishing news. Richard Hoagland was alive and living under the stolen identity of Terry Szymanski, a Florida fisherman who had died in a boating accident in 1991. Richard had rented a room from Terry's father, discovered the death certificate, and used it to assume a new identity. Under this alias, he remarried in 1995, fathered a child, obtained a pilot's license, and acquired property, including an airplane. The deception unraveled when the real Terry Szymanski's nephew, while researching his family history on Ancestry.com, discovered that his late uncle appeared to have married 4 years after his documented death. This anomaly prompted the Szymanski family to alert authorities, leading to Richard's arrest in July 2016 on charges of identity fraud. He pleaded guilty and served nearly 2 years in federal prison. Upon his release in April 2018, Richard returned to Indiana, where he faced further legal repercussions. In May 2018, a Hamilton County judge ordered him to pay nearly $2 million in back child support to Linda, a sum reflecting the years of unpaid support with accrued interest. Despite this judgment, the likelihood of Linda receiving the full amount remains uncertain, as Richard's assets are entangled in divorce proceedings with his Florida wife. The psychological impact on Richard's sons has been profound. Douglas, in particular, has faced significant challenges, including struggles with substance abuse and incarceration. In a letter to his father, Douglas expressed the deep-seated pain and confusion stemming from the abandonment, writing, "At a very young age, I lost a person that I thought loved me. So for a long time, I wondered what was wrong with me that would warrant someone being able to just walk away." Despite the turmoil, Douglas conveyed a sense of forgiveness, stating, "I hope that you have found peace with yourself. I have forgiven you." Richard Hoagland's case serves as a stark reminder of the far-reaching consequences of deception and abandonment. It underscores the resilience of those left behind and highlights the intricate ways in which modern technology can unearth long-buried secrets, bringing elusive closure to fractured families.